It's a privilege tonight to introduce the leader and founder of our party, Senator Cory Bernardi, who 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, took a very big career decision after 10 years of fighting for the things that Kate and Joe and I have been talking about tonight within the Liberal Party, trying to call them back to their best selves. He left the party, or as he describes it, the Liberal Party left him, and I think that is accurate. But Cory had been a member of the Liberals for 30 years. I know he doesn't look old enough to have been anywhere for 30 years, but he had. He started very young. He'd been a senator since 2006. Before entering Parliament, Cory was a member of the Australian rowing team. He was a publican. He's been a businessman. He's been an investment portfolio manager and a venture capital entrepreneur. During his time in the Liberal Party, he was the youngest ever federal vice president of the party. He's the author of a best-selling book, The Conservative Revolution, and there's copies there later. I highly recommend it. But in 2009, he founded the Conservative Leadership Foundation to try and train young people. And then, of course, last year, or 2 years ago, he started the Australian Conservatives. It's a real privilege to have this man here in Brisbane and supporting our campaign to be part of this movement. And ladies and gentlemen, could I ask you to welcome him as he launches our Queensland Senate campaign? Thank you.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, I've got to say I feel humbled to be here in the presence of three fantastic candidates. And congratulations. And humbled by what we've actually achieved over the last couple of years. I've also had a bit of a chuckle, as Lyle noted, because I wondered what it was about Lyle that gave it away that he wasn't part of the vegan brigade. Might have been that rosy hue that he has, or that scent of soap. I don't know, Lyle. I wouldn't have picked it myself, but whatever it was, your Spanish dreadlock friend, he should have been a detective. I learned a little bit about Roman history today. And Joe, thank you for that. And it's so true. It's this war of attrition, this battle. Let's have the skirmish chip away until they give up and go away. We can't afford to have that happen in this country. We heard from Kate about her worldview, which until recent years would have been entirely mainstream and regular. It would have been common sense. It's what every parent wanted to teach their children. Use your common sense. Use your nous. Be self-sufficient. Don't rely on the government. Look after other people. And yet suddenly, the wisdom of the ages has disappeared. And you can understand the appeal. One of our candidates, and we have, I have to tell you, the best candidates anywhere in the country. Anywhere in the country. The Australian Conservatives candidates are united by this vision, this set of principles and this guidance about what is good for the country and how we can make this country better. One of our candidates, very clear thinking, farming bloke from just outside of Adelaide, got up at a community meeting and he said, I want to tell you a story about some ducks. And I thought, where is this going? Just like I was with the vegans and stuff. Where is this going? I won't do it justice, but I'll give you the snapshot of it. He said there was a farmer who had a lake in the bottom, or a dam in the bottom of his farm. And every summer the ducks used to go there, and every summer the farmer used to run down there on a Saturday and try and snaffle one of the ducks and catch him for his dinner. And he never managed to do it. And so he thought, well, how am I going to change this? So he started to feed the ducks. And the ducks started to trust the farmer, and every now and again he'd try and grab one and wouldn't manage to do it. So he kept feeding them until the ducks became reliant on the food. They no longer needed to go foraging for themselves. They'd wait for the farmer to come down. And then pretty soon they thought, well, hang on, why do we need to fly away for the winter? As it got very cold, the farmer built them, what do they call a duck hutch, a duck coop. And the ducks went in there and stayed warm over the winter, and the farmer would feed them. The ducks were entirely dependent on the farmer. You know what happened? The farmer managed to have a duck dinner every single week whenever he wanted it. They just reach in and pluck a duck out and off they go. And he said, what's this got to do with politics? Well, ladies and gentlemen, the Australian people are the ducks. And the farmer is our government. It is throwing breadcrumbs at us, and people are increasingly becoming reliant on it. They have ditched self-sufficiency and their freedom for what they think is a free lunch. And there is no such thing as a free lunch. And if you want to look around the country and think every time government gives us something, it takes away a little bit of our freedom or someone else's. And that works beautifully while you're not being affected by it. But the problem is when the whole country is looking for a handout, when the whole country is starting to depend on government, you know we have a massive problem. Yeah. And the problem is not just a financial one, it's a moral one, it's an ethical one, and it's one of our innate freedoms. Financially, this country's been going backwards. Don't let them pretend they're delivering a surplus this year. They're not. They'll still be borrowing $7 or $8 billion more in this financial year than they will be taking in tax revenues. And that excludes the money that they've borrowed for investments like the NBN or the Inland Railway or the second airport in New South Wales. These investments, of course, are not profitable. They're not going to get an economic rate of return, otherwise the market would build them. But the government says they're going to get their money back, just like they did with the NBN. Don't believe that no matter who forms government, the temptation is not going to be there to whack taxes up. Because as far as governments in this country are concerned, we are all just economic units now. We are just there to fund their boondoggles and their ideas and their policies that have resulted in such chaos and dysfunction. And if you doubt that, and I've said this for years, if you doubt that, you need look no further than the electricity market, which is the problems in that are all directly caused by government policy intervention. Or Kate referred to some teachers in this room. Look at the education system. Our kids, I hate to say it, are coming out less literate and less numerate than they've ever been before. And yet more money goes into that every single year. Government is not the answer to our questions. Government will enslave us, it will trap us until it actually will destroy us. And that is one of the key premises upon which the Australian Conservative Party was founded. That government needs to be limited in its scope and its size and its reach. And we knew, as government was failing the Australian people, as the blue team and the red team, it didn't matter which one, their only claim to fame was they were slightly less bad than their alternative. We knew the Australian people would look around in search of an alternative. And I knew that in that space, all sorts of red and yellow alternatives might arise. Big hats or no hats. And yet, the result of investing the unhappiness in a party of personality, a reactionary party that knows how to carp and whine and complain but doesn't have solutions, was going to be bad for this country too. And so the mission when we started was to provide a credible and principled alternative, one which policy was paramount. It was more important than personalities, that we would never compromise on what was good for our country, and from upholding the rules and the regulations, the policy platforms that had worked from generation to generation to generation. We would never surrender our ethics or our morals on the altar of experimental politics. And I'm delighted that after 2 years, we have resisted every single temptation to do that. Because it's not the easiest thing in the world to watch hysterical, shrieking, reactionary, inconsistent and incoherent people getting headlines about politics and saying you should be more like that person. Why don't you do something like that? That's pretty tough. But we know it's not the right thing to do. And it will get you a short-term sugar hit, but it will cost you a great deal in the long run. And we've seen that with our alternatives. Few would have seen foreseen the rise or the investment of some $50 million into an individual who had been so discredited in the political space only 3 or 4 years ago. And many of you, if you're anything like me, watch those ads on TV and go, that's not a bad point. Now it frustrates me even more because all of those points that where you say it's not a bad point come from our political manifesto. So at least someone's doing the heavy intellectual thinking for others to promote. We should be flattered. We should be flattered when we see governments or alternative governments putting forward ideas and concepts that can be linked quite directly into the sorts of things that we have raised again and again and again over the years. We are shaping the political debate. Yeah. And we should be frustrated when those who are angry in politics are so disengaged with it that they will just support and cling to whoever is vocalising their concerns, notwithstanding the fact they cannot provide a comprehensive and consistent policy solution. We are different. We are a party that says what it means. We mean what we say. You will not hear me say something up on this stage and then say something differently when there's a secret camera recording me. I will always uphold my principles. I've had these discussions with my candidates and with Lyle as the primary candidate here in Queensland, where we'll be discussing the events of what's happened in Queensland, and Lyle will say, Cory, I really don't want to go down this path that others are choosing to take, because it's not how I feel. And I say, I'm so pleased, Lyle. Or the shoe might be on the other foot. And I say, Lyle, we cannot go down that path. And he goes, I don't want to do that, because it means compromising and sacrificing the credibility and the platform that we have established. And believe it or not, we have established a mighty platform. From nothing a couple of years ago, other than an idea, we've established a political movement across the country. Yeah. A country that is desperate for change and desperate for consistency. And the time will come where they will recognise that caricatures of politicians are not the answer to their problems. They will only create more problems. They will recognise that they have been herded into a coop by a very hungry farmer and that their freedoms are at stake. And there is only one political party that is absolutely committed to upholding freedoms, whether we like it or not. Whether we like your religious beliefs or not, we will uphold your freedom of religion. We will stand against political correctness, whether we agree with you or not. We will defend your freedom of speech. We will defend your property, because it's the right thing to do. We will stick up for the traditional family, because mums are important and so are dads. And don't let anyone tell you any differently. We will stick up for private industry and private enterprise. We will fight against the government subsidising people's private wages. Wouldn't it be better for everyone if they just cut taxes and said, keep more of your own money rather than take it from Peter to pay Paul? These are principles that conservatives have embraced through the eons, and yet they've all been lost in this modern political environment, except in one place. And that one place is in the Australian Conservatives Party. And we've done something right. For all the mistakes we may have made, we've done something right. We have attracted amazing candidates, and none better than here in Queensland, I have to tell you. They've done an extraordinary job. But it's not just the candidates who've done a good job. Simon Green, the State Director, has been quite extraordinary in his volunteering, in his organisational capacity. And so, I will never say this publicly, but there is only one Green I don't want to stop. Dear Sarah. No, that's not true. And he couldn't have done it None of us could have done it without your support and your help. And I know there are some of you who have been on this journey right from the word go. I know there's been one or two who have confessed to me that you're late comers to the Conservative Party.
It's okay.
You're all welcome. You're all welcome. And we're going to face the trial and tribulation of our lives in the next 3 weeks, I can tell you that now. Being a political candidate and being a political supporter and someone who's actively engaged is perhaps the experience that most exposes you to the vicissitudes of life. I love that word, vicissitudes. I learnt it on my honeymoon, of all places. It wasn't from my wife, it was from another couple actually, and I had to ask him what it meant. And it's just about the highs and lows that we all travail, and how you recover from your lows and how you deal with your highs goes to building your character. And when you're a political player or someone who's involved in politics, you live and breathe it every single day. And when you meet someone who gives you a cheer up and says, you're a good fella, I really like what you're doing, or you've got great policies, it gives you a lift and makes you walk a couple of inches taller. And then as you're leaving the airport, someone says something different to you, it can leave you a little deflated. I wouldn't know. But that's dealing with the human emotion. But can I tell you that every time one of you steps forward and volunteers, every time one of you puts your hand up and reaches out to one of our candidates or to me or to anyone else and says, keep going. This is too important. We're not doing it for ourselves. You're not doing it for yourselves. We're doing it for the country and we're doing it for our children. So we cannot give up. We will never give up because we can't afford to give up. Yeah. Our opponents will come and go. Believe me, they will. Their money will be spent. Their outrage will wither. Their financial lifelines will dry up because they're not formed within the framework of principle or bound by common decency or integrity. They're built on a platform of anger. We're not angry. We want to fix the wrongs of this nation. Yeah. And we are the only party that has the political platform, that has the policies that are coherent, that are logical, that are sensible, that have stood the test of time. We have an opportunity at this election to make a significant mark. In winning one of those 2 Senate seats that Lyle said is up for grabs. We know it's not going to be easy. We are facing an onslaught of yellow billboards, an outrage, but we can do it. And we can do it because the Australian people know that change is necessary. But the question is, who can they trust to make that change? They might change the government, but they don't trust the Labor Party. Even if they elect the coalition, they don't trust them. And so the question before them is, who do they trust to make that government better, to be that third-party insurance policy? Who do they trust to restore some common sense back into our body politic? When we put that question to the Australian people, and when they're exposed to the differences between us and our opponents, we come out victorious every single time. So in the next 3 weeks, we have to take that message as far and wide as we possibly can. From Townsville down to... No, we want to go further south. Tweed Heads, maybe. It's just, yeah, it is, I know, but we'll go right to the border. We've got to take it to the length and breadth of this great state of Queensland, because it's here that government is going to be won or lost. It is here that our message will resonate very strongly. Yeah. It is here that we have extraordinary candidates, an amazing organisation, and we have an incredible bunch of volunteers. I see a lot of them with us today. I'm enthused about that. I'm grateful for it. I want to say thank you to all of you. And the next 3 weeks will test us all, our resolve, our strength, our character, our enthusiasm, but we will come out the other side victorious. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for all you do. Thank you.